Welcome. You're listening to Talking About It being immersive theatre. Not really sure why I'm whispering. It's not a secret. I'm Dr. Joanna Bucknell, and over the course of this podcast series, I'm going to be heading out to talk to immersive theatre performers, practitioners, makers and producers in their own natural habitats, with the hope of gaining some insight into the nature of the work that they do and some of the processes that they have to go through in order to get that work out to you, the general public. Now, first of all, I'm going to try quite hard not to be boring. Not that immersive theatre has really the potential to particularly be boring. And secondly, I'm going to try really hard not to be too academic about the whole thing, which again, it is a challenge being that I'm a doctor and also an academic. But we'll see how it goes. So, let's get started. Okay, so I'm here at the Albany Theatre in London with Olivier Lansley, the artistic director of Enfants Terrible, and their producer James Seager, to discuss their immersive show from last year, Alice's Adventures Underground. So firstly, I wanted to congratulate you on your Olivier Award nomination.
Thank you very much.
You must be really stoked to have got that nomination. Has it changed things at all since?
I think for us, kind of just to be acknowledged amongst those awards, and particularly for an immersive show and the type of show and the type of theatre company that we are, to be acknowledged on that scale and amongst those sort of shows was quite a big, quite a big deal for us, but I think quite an important mark to the way that theatre is going and the way that theatre is changing, and to see different types of theatre being acknowledged alongside more traditional forms.
Ollie and I were really expecting it, because it's a little bit different from what they've recognised before. It was a real shock, so we weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
And it was, as Ollie said, it's lovely to be recognised. Very happy.
Yeah, it was very surreal.
Well, once again, congratulations on your Olivier nomination. I'm sure it's going to open up lots more doors and lots more opportunities in the future. Can you talk a little bit about what makes your work so distinct? What do you think makes Les Enfants Terrible really recognisable?
Well, I guess it's sort of storytelling. We're a storytelling company. That is always first and foremost, whether we're doing an event or whether we're doing a traditional play or whether we're doing a piece of immersive theatre. I think the thing that ties everything that we do together is the kind of the storytelling element. And then obviously we're known for our kind of visual aesthetic. Yeah. We're very theatrical. We've got live music and puppets and visuals, and we embrace the kind of theatricality of what we do. Mm-hmm. I think we love the theatre and kind of embracing that, and I don't think at any point do we pretend in our shows that we kind of smash through the fourth wall quite a lot. We never sort of deny the fact that we're using stagecraft and in a piece of theatre. So
and I think we try and use music or props or puppetry as a mean to tell the story, as opposed to maybe look at us, we're doing this. It has to serve a reason for being there, and a reason for telling the story. And I think hopefully that makes us at least memorable. But
I think audiences respond to that, don't they? Because I think what forms like, for example, naturalism or realism do can be done in other mediums now more effectively. And I think the joy for me, especially I'm a theatre scholar, so what I'm interested in is the theatricality, is that being in the same room as those people. And I think your work really acknowledges the fact that we're in that space with you and sharing that experience.
Well, I think that's a massive thing, particularly at the moment. I think you're seeing that across all art forms. In the last few years, everything is becoming, which it wasn't, 5 or 6 years ago, but now everything is being pushed towards more experiential stuff, more live performance. You look at, even though, and it's all often it is driven by economy, but the way that music has shifted in the last few years to being about artists making money from doing their live shows, and those shows then, having to become more theatrical, more of an experience, and also audiences now are craving different. There's such a, there's so many Netflix and Amazon, there's so much great content that you can get at your fingertips the whole time. So if we're trying to compete with that and ask people to pay out 50 quid and leave their sofa and leave Breaking Bad and come and sit in a dark room with us, you've got to make it something that you can't get elsewhere.
But I think our artistic policies is, we, as Ollie said before, I think we do what we feel, what we want to do. And sometimes, I remember driving back from Edinburgh one year, like, what should we do now? What would we want to see? It's never sit down and thinking, let's make this something cool because of this or that. It's like, we've done a musical, I've always been interested in the First World War, let's do a First World War drama, or let's do a kids show, or let's do an immersive show. It's what we would want to see and what excites us at that particular moment.
I would hope actually one of the main threads that I think comes through in our work is our genuine enthusiasm for what we do and our kind of excitement about it. It's very much we are as excited about anyone about creating these shows, and I think that's what is the key to us making work that people like, is because we like it.
Do you think that those core people then, you said Immaculate was a real kind of turning point for the company, so do you think those core people that you have involved are kind of what drive everything forward from that collaboration?
I think, first of all, they're amazing at their jobs. Sam Wire and Tom Gisby or whoever that we've mentioned. And also we have a shorthand, I guess, between us all. And we all kind of have, without realising it, a similar vision. But they're passionate and dedicated and very talented, but we all get on really, really well and share ideas and be in a really good collaborative space to create the work.
It's a real mix, because also the company kind of thrives and continues to kind of succeed based on collaboration and new people. So I think it's very much a combination of, either you're an enfant or you're not. You go through, and so along the years you sort of pick people up, and once you're in, you're in.
I saw Alice Underground last year, and I know lots of people probably didn't, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about it, but also what I don't want to do is to give anyone who might be listening spoilers if they're intent, because I know you're bringing it back in April
it's coming
next
back
year.
Next April.
I'm glad you said that. I would have given loads of spoilers.
I'm so excited. I'm going to go again, because I actually went twice, but I managed to have the same route both times. I'm not sure how I managed to do that. So when it comes back again, I'm going to go again.
Right.
So I wanted to ask you if you could explain a little bit about Alice to the people listening without giving too much away.
So...
In a tagline, which sounds really... we never use this tagline, but essentially we... and it sounds a bit corny and cheesy. It's not really Alice's adventure, it's yours. And that's what we wanted to do. When you read that book, as Ollie said, you want to go to Wonderland, and this is your opportunity to go to Wonderland. And from a logistical point of view, 56 people go into Wonderland, and you get a choice of Eat Me, Drink Me. And that splits you up into two routes, 28 and 28, and then those 28, as they go off, do different routes, get split up again. So there are 4 groups of 14 that go around Wonderland and have a unique experience.
Well, essentially everyone is given a playing card. Everyone is assigned a playing card.
That's why it's
and your
28.
journey is dictated by whichever card you might get.
Yes, I think I still have mine in my purse.
So
I love getting stuff when I come away from a show. I like having things to keep, so I really like the card as well.
And there are lots of different variations of what you can experience from that show. And, so did you go... Were you red or black card?
Red.
I remember. Red.
Both times.
So you got to see the Mocktail film.
Yes, I did, and that actually was probably my favourite moment in the show. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was beautiful.
A good one.
Really beautiful.
But also what we wanted to do, the reason why we wanted to do a show like this, 2 reasons. One, as I said, we felt was the best way to tell that story. When you read Alice, you want to go to that world. But 2, and I can't remember what my number 2 was.
Your number 2 is basically what you're saying is the reason why we ventured into kind of doing immersive theatre is that we massive fan. There's some brilliant companies out there doing it, and massive fans of what they do. But what we wanted to do was something that we hadn't encountered before, which was being able to go into a really immersive world that is totally sort of 3-dimensional but still feel really integrated into a full narrative and to really feel part of that. And so the big thing with Alice was the huge kind of logistical challenges to go, right, how do you create a world and how do you create an audience experience where you get freedom of choice and also the ability to kind of explore and have a sense of kind of freedom, but at the same time curate their experience and give them a story, because the very nature of a story is you need to be able to progress it. You need a beginning, a middle and an end, and how do you do that without controlling your audience? So the logistics that went into the show was so complicated, and that's why we ended up having the cards, and so you've got a level of kind of being able to not control but kind of curate an audience member's journey through the space. And so from an audience member, it's the different audience goes in every 15 minutes and they go on this route, but then there's also a whole other rotor in the background, and so you've got 40 different actors, but the complications of, if you want to progress a story, for example, you might want to see a character at the beginning of the show and at the middle of the show and the end of the show, but because they're working on this loop, you've got actors that are performing, like the tea party is a good example. You've got the Hatters that are performing their tea party for 10 minutes, and then the moment that scene finishes, they have to rush across to the court to appear at the end of someone else's show. So it was incredibly complicated. But
Alice and James suggested as well, it's in some ways we get kind of our experience as we go through it, but then of course the actors are effectively doing a durational piece of work. So it's, in a way, their experience is really different as well to what the audience experience.
Totally. And because of that, the actors all play up to 6 parts each. Wow. So even if you went on, you could see that, like, it's an impossible show to note as a director, because you would note a show and you would go, right, well, that combination of actors is not going to happen again for another 2 months. Mm-hmm. So you can see the show, you can see exactly the same route 2 nights in a row and you'd see a totally different thing. Mm-hmm. You can see it on the same night, the Mock Turtle that you've seen, which is this big kind of musical set piece. For the first 6 shows, you might see someone playing that on a guitar, and the next 6 shows you might see someone playing it on a junk piano somewhere else, and so it's it was. But again, I think all of that kind of anarchy added to the sense of it being, that's what Wonderland is. It's a real world that is moving and shifting and changing, and you walk out one door and suddenly you see all these other people rushing this way and that way, and I think that's what was the biggest challenge, but also the biggest kind of achievement with that show, was having that full world moving about and bringing it back. We're really excited about being able to push that even further. I think we were surprised and impressed with how much the audience engaged with our process, and were we realised a lot, and you realise a lot that in immersive theatre it's not just about what you see, it's also about what you don't see, and it's about the audience's level of how prepared they are to interact. And I think when we bring it back, we can be even bolder with those choices and the different routes.
I enjoyed the opportunity as well to spy on the group that were eating the tarts as well, so I really enjoyed kind of peeking in on those. And it was similar. I've been to Third Rail Project's piece about Alice, then She Fell in New York as well, and there was a similar moment in there where I got to kind of spy on other people having their experience through kind of a mirror, and I thought that was really interesting because there were 2 really different takes on kind of actually the same text, which I thought was really interesting. So there's also a draw, isn't there, for the audience to keep coming back as well, because there's that possibility that it's just different every single time.
I mean, originally when we started it, the 4 routes were, everyone saw the same thing, but then we realised and saw, in the bar afterwards, people really, as Ollie said, enjoyed seeing different things and talking about experiencing different things. So we made the routes very different.
Big changes in the first few days and the first week or so of the show, totally changing it and realising, like you say, the part of the joy of this show was you'd have 2 people that, or 4 people that went in together. They'd all choose make different choices, and then they come back at the end going, what? Well, I didn't see that, and you saw that, and what, saw a caterpillar, and this, that, and the other. So, and then that became part of the experience, I think.
And it formed, as we said, it makes it like a real world. You know, that there are you're aware that other things are going on over there. I mean, what we need to do is make your journey as fulfilling as possible, but realise that someone else's is fulfilling, and that's exciting. And obviously people want to come back and experience that as well.
Well, it extends the interest, and I'm really interested in audience experience and trying to capture audience experience, trying to understand audience experience. So actually I've found that with nearly all the immersive stuff I've gone to, the way you kind of extend your experience is then in the bar afterwards when you've all had completely different experiences, and you can get the chance to kind of, I didn't see that, or share these different kind of moments and go, oh God, I want to come back now because I want to see that, but then I might not see that. And so there's this whole thing that kind of actually extends that experience beyond.
Well, it was also for us a big thing was to go, how do you give everyone a different but an equal experience? We didn't want people to be like, oh, well, I missed that, and I went through the wrong door, and I didn't go to see the right person. And so again, it's about trying to make sure that everyone feels like they're part of their own narrative and an important part of that.
In some ways, there's a big risk with it, isn't it? Because it's so close to so many people's hearts, and it's so beloved, that text for children and for adults across many generations. So, was there a kind of an anxiety about sort of taking that text?
Yeah, there's definitely anxiety for me about the Mad Hatter, I think, and the Tea Party, because I think the minute, even with the posters looking at it, the minute you put the Mad Hatter on there, it's like, people think that Alice in Wonderland, that character is so iconic, even maybe more so than Alice. Like, how are they going to do the Hatter? How are they going to do the Tea Party? There is an expectation. You've got to play to that expectation a little bit, but at the same time, you have to offer something your own.
We talked about it a lot, didn't we?
Yeah.
And it's particularly with something as iconic as this, and that's been done so many times. You're towing you really have to toe a line between doing something of your own, but also satisfying what the audience's needs from that piece.
Yeah.
If you go to Wonderland, you need X, Y, and Z from that, but you don't want to, and also you have an opinion. Most people with Alice, it's one of those shows that actually everyone has a totally different version, and it's a hybrid of Tim Burton, Disney, a cartoon, a book they read, an adaptation, or it's something from Looking Glass, or it's being told the story. Everyone thinks they know Alice in Wonderland, but what most people know is this kind of mishmash of references and cultural references, and it's across everything. So you're trying to satisfy a very wide-ranging kind of, but it's instinctual. It's in people's psyche, Alice in Wonderland. So it's very much that balance between satisfying people's desires for it, but making your own decisions and and creating your own world. And I think as long as you see that through to a certain level of detail, hopefully, usually you'll be okay with it, and you don't just make decisions for the sake of making decisions, like going, right, our Mad Hatter's not going to have a hat because no one's done that before. As long as you make your decisions based on your own internal logic of what the piece is, I think that's a good rule in general.
And on that, that does lead on to where we first started, because I was quite keen for it to not reinvent the wheel and not have an Alice in Wonderland set in an office or something, because I felt that people have done that a lot. And for me personally, haven't seen an experience, an immersive world where you go to Wonderland that's in my mind, but it does come back to what Ollie's saying, is in what is in your mind. But when we first started talking about it with Sam, his idea of Alice, and from a design point of view, was this dystopian world that had gone to ruin, that had been left for over 150 years, and had almost like, no one had gone there anymore, and it was a really good starting point. I remember at the time thinking, I think we're going a bit too far that way. But then, we met, I think, in a nice hybrid in the middle a little bit.
Came from that. Also, really, it all comes from the text. Everything in that show comes from somewhere in the text. It's not just us kind of going off piste.
No, but it fit with our logic, as what Ollie was saying, in terms of, and we started making decisions about, if our Wonderland was set.
Well, the big thing that we did was take out Alice from Alice in Wonderland, because we realised very early on that whenever you've got Alice there, she becomes this kind of conduit that you experience everything through, and when you want your audience to experience that,
You are Alice,
you
aren't
need
you?
to
Yeah,
you
I
need
was
to
gonna
take
say
that
we're
filter
Alice.
away to allow them to experience it directly. But that was a big day, wasn't it? Doing this, you know, but whenever anything happens and you're seeing it through her eyes, you know, there's a distance created. So it was taking her out that was a big thing. And then we were like, well, where's she gone? Why is she not there? And blah 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 blah. And then it all started kind of coming together through that.
And I think our role was very clear, which I think is quite nice, because with lots of other immersive things I've been to, in a way you have to kind of be an immersive, experienced person to be able to negotiate those worlds. And actually I thought this sort of really bridged that gap and was really accessible in terms of that we had a fairly clear role that took us around and then sort of inducted us into that space, which I thought then gave us a bit more freedom to be able to experience
Oh, good.
things.
Well, I think that's such an important thing in a piece of immersive theatre. If you're going to be in a world, if you're going to put an audience in a world, the most important thing for that audience member is to know who they are in that world, because then they can play by the rules of it. If you're in a world and characters start talking to you, you need to know who you are. Are you an audience member? Are you a voyeur? Are you someone within that world? So I think, and it's very similar. We talked a lot about computer games and the computer game kind of model of when you start playing a computer game these days, you have a tutorial and you choose your character and you learn about the world so that. And then it gets more and more
there's a
complex.
mechanic, isn't there? And you learn the mechanic before you
Totally.
can then engage with that. And I think I make immersive, from a live art, more of a live art perspective, so stuff that engages an audience. I think it's weird to call it immersive potentially, but I guess it would be lumped in with that. And the one thing I found is, throughout all my PhD research, is the less kind of freedom and the more clear the mechanic of the liminal space was, actually the more freedom people felt they had and the better they could engage with whatever was going on. So I think what you do at the beginning of the show is really set that up so that the audience can kind of go, okay, so these are the rules, this is kind
and
of
you'd be
what I'm
amazed
doing.
at how people that would, we're people who make immersive theatre that on the whole probably wouldn't claim to be immersive theatre fans, in the sense that we would be terrified of, whenever we go to immersive theatre, we're like, oh God, please don't talk to me, don't make me do anything. But the thing is, I think, very quickly, as long as you establish those rules, people that wouldn't consider themselves to be immersive theatre fans, and people that wouldn't even dream about talking to an actor or this, that and that, if the rules are clear, very quickly they find themselves in a comfortable position and they go much further than they thought they would. And that's sort of what I was alluding to earlier in terms of what we do when we come back, is realising that, not just for a kind of, Shoreditch immersive, we do an immersive theatre show every day, we had a very wide range of audience on Alice, and the kind of, we had a lot of what you would consider to be traditional West End type audience.
Yeah, I was surprised when I was waiting. I really enjoyed the theatrical space that we got to wait in as well. I thought that was really lovely, but the diversity of the audience that were there really struck me, because other things I've been at hasn't been potentially as
we were very surprised by
diverse.
that, and probably one of the things that we're the most proud of actually with the show is the diversity of that audience. Is got nominated for an Olivier, you're tapping into that audience, but then also you're tapping into our more traditional audience. But you had all these people that were willing to go with it, to go with the show, and by the end, when you've got the kind of final set piece in the court, everyone's involved and everyone gets involved, and I think that's something that we're really excited to kind of keep pushing and exploring. But it's so much about, like you say, it's about establishing that mechanic.
Well, as soon as you take their hand and pull them across a space that they normally just watch, you have to give them something, a reason to invest, but also a way to navigate something that's unknown. I think you manage that on two levels, because Alice is so known, so there's a level of comfort that comes with, okay, well, I know these characters in some form or another, and I know this world in some form or another, even if it's kind of a bricolage of all of those cultural representations of that text. But that gives you a comfort, and then when you're put into suits, I think that really consolidates that. So you're kind of like, okay, I know what I'm doing now, and I feel comfortable, and I feel like I can play now that I've got the rules of the game.
Well, actually, the court, the first show in the court, not everyone did stuff. And actually, I remember we got notes from a friend of ours who's an actress, and she was in one of the groups, and they got up and they did their bit, and then her boyfriend who's not an actor, and you know, he was like, well, I was sitting there and I was jealous, and I wanted to do something, and I wanted to be a part of it. And again, that really surprised us, because we were like, oh, can we maybe get these people to do this? And actually immediately it was like, no, we're invested in it. We've been on this journey and we want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started pushing it further and further, you know, and that first week the show changed so unrecognisably.
That's 2 weeks.
every day.
Yeah.
Because the thing about, and we knew this to be the case, but it was totally a show that until you put an audience through it, you don't know what it is. You don't know how it's going to work, and you have to be able to adapt.
Absolutely.
With everything that you
and
know.
Also, without being, you know, grandiose about it, no one had done anything like this before, really, in terms of the mathematical complexity of it as well, and no one had done it on this scale. So we were learning as we were doing, and we had to adapt, which was slightly terrifying at times, and changing it, especially for the actors. But
I think for this form, it's one of the biggest issues, and it's one of the things I have a lot in my own work as well. And I was going to ask, actually leads very well into my next question. It's so hard to kind of rehearse this sort of work because it's so reliant upon that participation from the audience. And so I was going to ask you, kind of, what strategies did you try and do? As
well,
you
we
went
did.
through?
I mean, we did have to rehearse, and you're right as well. But the rehearsal process of this was as complicated as the show. As Ollie said earlier, that, you know, we had 42 actors, but then, you know,
each actor's rehearsing 6 parts with 6 different things. You know, so you're kind of. It was absolutely nuts.
It was, but we had to be methodical with our planning of rehearsal. We sat down and spent probably 3 solid days, maybe more, of actually, right, at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, we'll do this scene. At the same time, someone else is looking at that scene. Then we have to move over to another scene and do that. How many times are we looking at that scene? We've only looked at it 4 times. We've got to look at it 5 times with this combination. It was...
And then we need to leave them there, and they need to rotate cast, and they need to rotate cast every 20 minutes while we're leaving them there, and we're going to go and touch on this, and then we're going to do this.
I can't
it was
believe
ridiculous.
we did that. But it had to be done like that. So that when we got into the space, that side of it, the mathematical methodicalness of it was there, and then we could, putting an audience in, be flexible to change things as we had to.
Well, it's different levels of, you know, it's the old is it Rumsfeld quote that you've got your known knowns, you've got your unknown knowns, and you've got your unknown unknowns. So therefore, you have to make sure you have to go through every single kind of everything that you can think of, because you know that you're going to get to a point where there's stuff that you haven't thought of. So you need to have done every eventuality that is on the cards, and you need to know, you go, right, we don't know how this one's going to work, but we know we're going to have to deal with it. I mean, we're working on a new show at the moment, which is going to be opening in July, which is another immersive piece, and with that, it's even, again, we're pushing the kind of the audience interaction even further, and that is literally, we have no idea if it is going to work until we put an audience in it, and we're doing a kind of rough R&D next week, but it's literally, you know, it's very much audience driven, and we don't know if it's going to last an hour or 10 minutes or 2 hours, because it's all being judged by, you know, driven by the audience. So it's kind of terrifying, but it's exciting, because you're doing stuff that, you know, we certainly haven't attempted before, you know, so it's,
Did you have, and I always have this too, I try and think of everything anyone could possibly do within the space that you've created, but there's always someone who does something that you could never possibly have anticipated. So did you have strategies for kind of errant audience?
Well, I never anticipated an audience to get into the water during the mock turtle scene, so that was something that I never thought would happen and deal with.
Wow.
So you can't prepare for that.
what you do is you get, you know, it's very much...
Did you give them a towel?
Or that someone would try and snog our rabbit. So
wow,
there you
okay.
go.
I mean, we had all sorts going on.
You can't.
But what you do is you get really, really good performers, and you get them battle ready, and you kind of throw everything at them. And our cast were unbelievable, because the stuff that they had to do, you know, on press night of all nights, we had a power cut and everything went down. So suddenly they found themselves in a 8-foot square room, you know, with Lynn Gardner trying to occupy her for 20 minutes while no one knew, you know, it was just, but you that is all about the personnel, and people sink or swim, and we were very lucky to work with a bunch of people. We did everything we could to prepare them for that, but it's again, you're preparing people for the unpreparable for.
Well, this is the difficulty, and I've just started teaching it to undergraduates as well as a unit, immersive theatre, and one of the things that really struck me is there's no real kind of training that you can kind of engage in as a performer to sort of deal with this. And when I make my own work as well, I'm kind of like, how do you audition someone when you want them to do real things in a real space with real people? So it's really about, it comes down to kind of their charisma, their kind of bravery.
We've started doing almost like at the beginning of our immersive projects, we almost do like an immersive boot camp.
Yeah.
When we start.
Yes.
But I think it's important as well to remember that with this, there's a big script. Ollie and Anthony wrote a very, very detailed script, and what was also was hard for us as directors and probably for Ollie and Anthony as writers is thinking, because the scenes had to last, for example, one scene had to last 7 minutes. Not 7 minutes and 1 second, 7 minutes. It had to, because of the complexities and the mathematical of all these people coming through.
Yeah.
So that was really tough in rehearsals and also cutting stuff and cutting the script. But then if your scene that you've got written down as an actor finished in 6 minutes, then you've got to improvise for the next minute, because the audience aren't allowed to leave that room before. They cannot.
But also,
because
the big thing
mess everything up.
is with audience. And I remember having this conversation with actors, is going, trusting your muscle memory. The idea of going, I'm going to do this monologue and it's going to last 6 minutes and 37 seconds. You say that to an actor and they're like, that's impossible. I can't do that every night. But then, I know we've done 15 years at the Edinburgh Festival, and you have an hour. You have an hour to get in and out, and you do a whole play, and you time that, and that play usually is within a minute of itself, and it's not like you're doing everything at exactly the same time, but you by the end of that run you're consistent to about a minute or two. So 6 minutes is a doddle. but the thing is, it's trusting that, and it's trusting your memory, and by the end the actors would be doing scenes and it would be bang, and we'd put these sound cues in the soundtrack, and you would see them. You'd go in, you'd watch them, and they'd talk, and they'd finish the speech, and the moment they finished, the sound cue came up, because it's amazing what your internal clock can do, and what when you know what you're doing. But it's having faith in it, and that is the biggest thing. That's the biggest challenge for an actor, particularly on a show like this, is having faith in everything, because you have to trust everything else about the world, because you can't control a show like this. And we tried.
We did, yeah. But all these things, in terms of actors sharing roles or scenes lasting for that amount of seconds, it wasn't us trying to be clever. That it had to be done that way. That was the hard way. We'd like to have done it the easy way, but it had to be that way. I mean, the actors, there's a scene, the kitchen scene, they do the same scene on repeat 36 times a night.
Wow.
The two actors. So as one audience leaves, another audience comes in straight away, and you do that 36 times. So from that, you can't have those two actors doing that for 6 months. So that was one of the reasons why then the following night, those two actors did another role.
Okay.
So that was, the reason. And then, so within the 42 actors that were involved, they were all in teams of 6, 4 or 5 or 6, and within those six actors shared a different role on rotation each night. And as Ollie said earlier, that combination was different for us and for audiences that saw it. It would always be different, but that was because otherwise they'd go mad, not in a good way.
Yeah, no, of course.
And the timing thing is because 56 people go in every 15 minutes, so you can't have an audience hanging around in one area a bit longer than they wanted to. So we built into lighting effects, sound effects, different effects, so the actor would know in the scene, okay, they've got to go on.
One thing goes awry in the whole
dominoes.
You've got more. It's like it's a tube, and you get one blockage, and the audience members are coming up behind.
I think something. I mean, maybe I've known this for a long time, but this show more than anything, I think I've realised about myself, and I'll probably always the same, is that we are control freaks, really. And this is the ultimate show where we have no control, because you pressed a button and the show went. At 6 o'clock, you press a button and nothing you can do about it.
Just goes.
And that's terrifying.
And that's going until it stops.
Yeah, and that's terrifying as a director, but it's probably terrifying for Ollie and I, who are both kind of a little bit control freaks because you've no control over it. It just happens.
And you can try, like trying to note a performance. You can go, the difference between watching someone in their first show and their 12th show, a different performance. Let alone between the first night and the second night and the third night. So as directors, it was.
Did you have any issues with? And I know lots of other shows have talked about this, that people taking things that they shouldn't take.
Yeah.
Constantly having to replace.
I mean,
props
Sam
and
has designed
things.
such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful world that I'm not. Yeah. So people unfortunately wanted to.
But we were talking about this earlier. People act in immersive shows in a way that they wouldn't act in any other environment.
Yeah.
These people wouldn't come into our office and take stuff. But in that show, the people stole potatoes.
Potatoes.
Yeah, people stole potatoes, and like these are people. They would never normally steal, and B, like if you want a potato, I'll give you a potato. But why are you? People just go crazy in these shows sometimes. Like, what are you stealing a potato for? Who wins?
It is that kind of thing of leaving the inhibitions at the door.
Yeah.
A little bit. That does happen in immersive theatre. And that happened with ours, but also, as we were going back to a little bit earlier, the diversity, we did have a real theatre audience, but then we also had a kind of the secret cinema type audience and punch drunk audience. We did have a younger audience, an older audience. We had a real diversity. And we had a lot of hen nights, which I never thought...
Wow, okay, I would never have thought that.
Which was a real surprise for me. Only on Saturday night, so they were kind of a little bit raucous.
They were crazy.
They were crazy.
Wow.
That was a bit of an eye-opener. But on a Wednesday was very theatre audience-y, and on Saturday was very party.
Another thing that we were, particularly that was a big thing for us was keeping the ticket prices down.
Yes.
Which and it was, a show with 40 actors and that kind of level.
That's just the actors, the crew as well.
Very, very difficult. But again, it was important for us for it to be accessible for, whoever wanted to see it. And so I think that was reflected in the diversity of our audience, which is something we're very proud of.
So where do you begin? Do you begin with writing a script and then kind of work from there? Is that how you did it with Alice, or did you begin with the design?
It's the idea, really. I mean, that sounds really cliche, but
and every show is different.
Yeah,
really. Like some of them have been, I've gone and written a script and then we go this way.
But also,
some of them have.
I think also thinking about the shows, all of our shows in order, they kind of are a reaction of the last show. So. The Trench, for example, First World War drama that's probably a bit heavy subject matter, that came off the back of doing something really light and comedic maybe, and the same with The Infant, which is quite dark. That came after Immaculate. Immaculate's a broad comedy.
Yeah. The
Infant isn't, so it's that of like, but that's not a conscious decision of like, oh, we did this, now let's do this.
What do we want to do now?
It's what we want to do now.
What would be fun, what would be cool, what would be exciting. That's where it always starts.
And I remember sitting in a park in it sounds very glamorous, in Gothenburg with Ollie and Tom, and them talking about let's do a musical next, and thinking, oh God, I don't really know that much about musicals, but and Tom's much more musically he's minded than I am.
But we've never known anything about anything until we've done it. We like people think of us as a puppetry company. We'd never picked up a puppet before Terrible Infants. And we'd never had live music in our shows before Terrible Infants.
No.
But we were just like, oh, that's cool, let's do that. And so we've made some puppets and we've played around with them, and then we've got some instruments.
And sometimes it comes off the back of seeing something ourselves and going, that was great, but wouldn't it be even better if we added this, and this? We may fail at doing that, but it's being inspired by seeing stuff and not just repeating that because that doesn't interest us, but like
being inspired by,
by inspired by
all theatre is theft, as my drama teacher used to
absolutely
tell
my whole career is based on the fact that I saw Quizula by 4 Cents and I was so frustrated because I wanted to play as well, and I just thought, why isn't there stuff that I can play as well? And that's then when actually I started going to see other work, when I started my PhD and started looking for this work where I could play too, and then realised there was a few people doing a few bits and bobs here, and it's just kind of exploded. So I was going to ask you, why do you think there is this current kind of real appetite for audiences to participate in this way, to kind of get up out of their velvet seats?
I think Ollie said it. Well, you said it earlier. Really, is that there is a demand out there for something new, and that just happens with theatre, but with film. With the advent of like 4D and things like that, of like 3D films or 4D films that's happening to you. There is an appetite for taking your experience a little bit beyond what's happened already, and music as well. Any art form, people looking for the next thing.
There's also kind of a bit of a cultural shift at the moment, and I think it's a generational thing slightly about audiences feeling wanting to be a part of a story as opposed to just see a story, and that's happening, across everything from, like we talked about computer games earlier, but there's so many things where you get to kind of be part of something yourself, and I think that's something that people are craving and looking for more, and the idea of something that everything is, we're coming out of a time where every television show or song or everything can be ripped and copied and reproduced and picked up at a moment's notice. So what I think is really shining through at the moment is the desire for an individual, unique experience that can never be repeated. You have, when you go to Alice, you have your experience, and that is never, that will never be repeated. That moment in time, and I think that's something that people are very, looking for at the moment. Is that sense of this moment is happening now, and then it's gone.
And it's about liveness, isn't it? It's really become about liveness because, as you said, everything else can be copied or replicated, or you can have it.
Yeah.
And I think this resists that kind of commodification in that way, which I think people really like, the idea that it's something that's unique and something that belongs to them and them only, which I think is probably one of the things that I really love about it as well. So I was going to, you've already said it's coming back in April next year, and I'm sure lots of people are quite excited. People who didn't get to go, I know lots of my students are desperate to see the show. It's too late for their essays though, which they're upset about. What is anything going to obviously you can't tell me too much probably, but is anything going to significantly change?
I think the big thing is going to be that the different paths are probably going to be even more pronounced. The different suits are going to have an even more specific journey. I think that's going to be
there's two things. First of all, there's things that we want to change, and whenever you do a show and you want to bring it back because you feel exciting and want to do it, and as Ollie said that. But the second thing is that there's a few changes in the vaults structurally and architecturally, and that's a good thing because that has made us think about how we can do things differently and use different spaces differently. So that will be different as well. It has to be, but that makes it different from what came before and pushes us, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, stuff that, again, with a show like that, it's such a beast that once it's up and running, it's very hard to make any significant changes.
Yeah.
We did.
But
we did. There are certain things that now you've taken it down and you're going to be putting back up again, you can really go, we never quite got that the way we wanted it, so now we can revisit that. But
it's interesting, going back to like the second point what I was saying about things that are changing structurally in the vaults. Since Alison has been quite successful, which is great, we've been asked and we've been looking into the possibilities of taking it to other places. So there's been interest in China, which is exciting, and Dubai and New York and all these places, and you think, well, actually, what building do you want it in? And putting it in a different building totally changes the show. That show was designed around the complexities and the architecture of that building, so when it changes, the show changes.
I think this is a real challenge actually for this art form, and actually one of the things that makes it really challenging to take to festivals as well is that most immersive things are so reliant upon that site specificity, and so shifting them or moving them around is really difficult. But I know there's a huge hub in New York of this kind of work in Manhattan. So, but again, the shows that are there have been resident for 5 or 6 years in the site that they began their work in. So, is that going to be a challenge? Do you think in the future? Is kind of
I think you just have to
you
have to
embrace
do a new, you have to be prepared to adapt it to, when the space is part of the show, is a character in the show, you have to be prepared to, it's like auditioning a new actor. You're not just going to get a carbon copy, you need to go, okay, right, how's this going to work with you and with us and together.
And you mentioned that you're starting to develop, because I was going to ask you if immersion is going to potentially become something that the company explore even further, because as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, Alice was your first kind of immersive piece, but you did say you were starting to develop another immersive piece.
We've got a big immersive show that's going to be opening in July, which I'm not allowed to tell you about, and everyone tells me off when I start talking about it. But
we're allowed to talk about
what I can tell you about it is that it's going to be, we're collaborating with Madame Tussauds.
Ooh.
Are you
I'm not allowed to say that. I'm not.
No, you're not allowed to say that.
I'm not allowed to say that.
Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah.
No.
The casting call's going out. The casting call's going out this week. And our name is on it, and Madame Tussauds' name is on it.
Well, I'm not launching this till I've just finished the website and everything, and I'm launching it end of April.
Oh, well, they're fine.
So by that point, I've already got 2 others that come up first.
I'll take the flak.
Just let me know.
But anyway, so we're doing an immersive show. We're collaborating with
somebody,
with Madame Tussauds. Is the other thing that I'm not allowed to say?
I don't know.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
We're not allowed to say what.
I'm doing
Well, I know definitely we're not allowed to say that. We're not allowed to say.
We're collaborating with Madame Tussauds to create an experience for Madame Tussauds in Baker Street, but so that experience will be there during the day, but then in the evening we will be creating a show within that set. So there'll be which is a really interesting combination for us.
Yes.
Is of using resources to create this kind of experiential thing for them during the day, and then in the evening go, right, now we can use that set and we're going to create a full show, and that show will be opening in July. And those tickets are going to be going on sale fairly soon, actually, so probably even by the time you announce this, it might be
That's
official.
becoming actually a real issue as a researcher, because I try and go and see pretty much anything that is immersive everywhere, and I didn't get to see Yumi Bum Bum Train show because I just could not get tickets, and that actually is becoming a real issue, is being able to, there's such public demand, trying to get tickets for things is, you have to really be in the know.
Well, this is going to be a really, again, it's another one where it's really hard to know how this is going. So it's a real brand new mechanic.
But it's quick
again.
off the back of the awards as well. So I think it's probably going to sell out fairly.
And it's limited. It's 40 audience per show.
Wow. Okay.
And only 8 weeks.
And it's only on for 8 weeks.
Wow.
So keep your eyes open on our website and yeah.
And then we're doing another one at the end of the year that's also limited.
And we're allowed to talk about that?
No.
Why?
We're not allowed to talk about that, no.
So much secrecy.
But I know, it's ridiculous.
We are allowed to talk about that.
We're not allowed to talk about that one.
We're doing another immersive show in the vaults again.
Yes, but we're not allowed to say what it is.
September, October.
This is good for me, it means I can keep my eye open.
And this again is another new development. It's another different type of immersive. We're collaborating with some very, very exciting people.
I'm so excited now. I know the people listening to this are going to be excited.
That will be announced in a
If it
couple
was
of
up to
months
us, we'd tell you everything. We really, I'd be but it's other people
that will be opening in September, October, and that's going to be with some very, very, very exciting collaborations on that, and that will be running for about 8 weeks.
Again,
as well.
limited. Yeah.
That will be limited. That's 80 people per show.
Maybe less.
Super.
Wow. Okay.
That's very cool.
So I need to keep my eyes really peeled for that.
And then also we've got Imaginary Menageries on tour, but there's a follow-up, we've got a brand new outdoor show which I am allowed to talk about, which is called the Fantastical Flying Exploratory Laboratory, which is set on this tells you about our artistic policy. So we were doing this show, Imaginary Menagerie, which is in this horse box. It's pop-up, goes through the festivals.
I saw the set when I spoke to Alice.
It's totally bonkers.
The set looked amazing. It looked great.
So basically we were like, let's do another outdoor show. What should we do? And there was like, should we do one on a hot air balloon? Yeah!
Did you see the show? You didn't.
I couldn't get to see it.
Because we did start that show as an outdoor show, touring with this horse box, and then that proved quite popular, so
we converted it. Compact.
Yeah, we converted it to an indoor show, which is what we're touring at the moment. Well, it finishes on Sunday, which is where you met James Kennigan and Alice Bounce.
Yes.
Joe.
Yeah, because I got to keep seeing the set because our university building is actually part of the new Theatre Royal, so I have to go through to get coffee, and I like to do that because I get to see all the sets being built and stuff. And that set with us, that's just bonkers.
That's designed by Sam as well.
So our new one is set in basically a giant hot air balloon that's going to be suspended 10 metres above. That's touring festivals this summer, which is going to be absolutely bonkers.
Great.
And we're bringing back the Vaudevillains, which we're really excited about,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be coming to the Spiegel tent in Edinburgh, and then Southwark Playhouse in September, which we're very excited about. We can't wait to get back into an actual theatre. We can point all the lights in one direction.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
You're so busy. When do you guys actually get time to sleep?
Imogen said no. We're doing a kids show as well.
Oh yeah, that's what we were just having a meeting about, the sequel to, with our kids company Le Petit, we're doing Captain Flynn and the Pirate Dinosaurs 2.
Oh.
And we're doing another one at Christmas, which we're not allowed to talk about that one either.
Probably not.
But that's going to be very fun. That's based on a very exciting book, and that's going to be opening in Worthing at Christmas.
Well, the final thing I wanted to ask you about, again, just because it's something that I'm really interested in and I've really had struggles with myself, is documentation. Documentation becomes so important for your legacy, for the heritage of the kind of the work, and specifically with immersive, it's so hard to document it in a kind of meaningful way. So have you managed any strategies for documenting the work itself and people's experiences of it?
Well, actually, funny you should say that. We do have, there will be an Alice's Adventures Underground
book.
Photo book.
I didn't know that.
High-end coffee table. But we were
Well, it's
very
not out
lucky.
yet. This is you're holding a
the first
prototype.
person in the world, well, not the first person in the world, first outsider from the office to see this.
Just for everybody listening, you're going to be so jealous. This is stunning. It's really beautiful.
So we were very, very lucky that we collaborated on the poster with a very, very talented photographer. And over the process of the show, he came back and he documented everything. And so now he's putting together this beautiful book of his pictures of the show, and so that's really exciting. That's going to be hopefully done in time for the new show.
Into my university library.
But then also, we do elements of trying to capture it on film a little bit, but it's one of those things. It's exactly what we're talking about, and that's probably the moment that you manage to capture it. We'll need to find something else to do.
Absolutely, yes, it's impossible to capture. Yeah. It's really impossible.
Also, what's quite good is you mentioned a little bit of collaborating with people, different types of people that aren't involved in theatre, which we did with this company called Creature, who collaborated a little bit with Alice. But the reason I'm talking about it is with Alexander Wolfe with Trench, and he did a lot of. He'd never been on stage before as an actor. He's a musician, singer-songwriter, and he performed in Trench and performed all these songs and documenting it. He was he wrote the music for the Mock Turtle and he performed as the Mock Turtle. So he released that as a single and that's out there and people can buy that and listen to that, and that straight away brings back memories of that. So there's a kind of documentation with his involvement, which was exciting, which adds another level to it, I think.
There's objects, because for me as a researcher as well, it's really challenging to, especially the ones that are super secret, so there's no documentation of some shows at all. There's no photos, there's no footage, there's nothing. And if you couldn't get a ticket to go, I guess my concern as an audience member, I kind of like that, because I like the fact that I've got my card and it brings things back for me. But as a researcher, I kind of go, damn, how do I write about this and how do I disseminate this and how do I capture this as a cultural moment?
We talked a lot about how much we should give away before the show, and it was a real... it was difficult because, we didn't want to give too much away.
No.
Because of, obviously, we had a lot of tickets to sell. But also we wanted it to be special. I think the only true way to experience Wonderland is to go there yourself. I think we put that as a tagline. So we didn't want to give too much away. But then suddenly when you got the BBC ringing you, BBC News or Sky News saying, oh, we'd love to come down and film a bit. We were like, oh, what should we do? What should we, because we've got a lot of tickets to sell. But... So I think when those things happen, we let them film a little bit, not all of it, and so we gave little bits away. But it's interesting now we're coming back in April. Everything's out there, and now we've released a lot more. There's loads more images.
So now we can be a bit more open about it, which is nice. But also it's the fact that we were nominated for an Olivier is this now it's part of theatre history now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That
we're
would
on a
be
list.
documented.
We're on a list on a website somewhere that this show happened.
It's always that tension, and for me, I always have that tension because as an audience member, as someone who loves this kind of work, I like that kind of non-disclosure of stuff and that secrecy. But as a researcher, I find it challenging, and I worry for in 20 years' time. The very thing that makes the form so exciting and so experiential is potentially the thing that's going to mean
I know exactly
it will be lost. And live art has had this trouble all along. What you've got are a few pictures, and it's actually the things, and this is what scares me, it's the things with the pictures, the iconic images from that live art that have survived kind of through, that has cultural legacy and has cultural value, and all of those other things that didn't capture those things in the moment will be lost and have been lost to the memory. And I guess as a researcher I care about that, but as a practitioner, do you worry about the legacy of that work?
I think that's a really, really interesting point, and I think often the people, not necessarily talking about myself, but often the people that are doing the most interesting and most experimental work aren't the best documenters, aren't the people that take the time to go, let's make sure this is documented in the correct way. When you're in the middle of it, that's not what you're thinking.
No, of course
you're
not.
just
we could be
going,
make
this work. And we have done over the years, there's, things and events that we've done that you just go, oh yeah, there was no point in our head we were going, we should probably book a photographer and do this. But, we've done these one-off events or 3-day events that have been these incredible experiences, and then you walk away the next day and they've disappeared.
Yeah, and that's exciting about
it. And it is exciting,
form.
but it is that sense of also going, it is important to kind of be measured in a sense of cultural impact, and it's massive at the moment. All of these things are such a, you flick through the Olivier programme and you go, I would argue that's not really a representation of what theatre in this country is at the moment.
No, not at all.
In the sense of the forefront of the medium, and it's not detracting from those shows in any way.
And it's not even thought that I have to think about it more because I am a practices researcher. So when I do practices research, it's one of the things that is always in the forefront of my mind, because I'm terrible for it as well, because I'm a practitioner first and foremost. So I'm kind of in the studio doing all this stuff, and it's usually driven by the research questions. Then sometimes after a couple of weeks I'll be like, ooh, I haven't been documenting this or I haven't been documenting that, and there is this real pressure, especially in academia, to have that disseminable evidence afterwards, but it really flies in the face of what you do as a maker and as a practitioner.
And it's a real skill that we've had to try and learn, and also to find the resources to do, because certainly in the early days, your work, everything is going into making it, and absolutely. It's not, you're not thinking about the other stuff. But again, I think one of the reasons why it is important is because it's about the next set of people that are coming through, and they're the people that need to, you're standing on other people's shoulders the whole time, and you need to go. People need to take what we've done and learn from us and build on that, and then the people after them need to be able to build on that, and it needs to be a progression as opposed to kind of... It's
become more acute with me thinking about with starting to teach it and going, oh gosh, where are the resources here to show these students what immersive work is? And of course, there's some companies who are excellent at doing it because they have people that specifically document their work in that way, but the students are always like, we can't afford to go and see all these massive shows. How do we access these things that's not accessible to them? So I have that in the back of my mind all the time, but I've started using a dramaturg because initially I just got people like students and stuff like, can you please take photos, can you please make notes or whatever, but what I found is you need someone who's much more embedded in understanding your process and understanding what it is that you're doing to be able to find ways to capture those things as you go along. But it is difficult because it's like a whole different discipline in itself that you kind of have to think about, but it will eventually become significant, I think, because of that cultural impact, and of course having to prove impact to get funding and things like that as well.
That was probably one of the big things that made a big change for us, was when we started having to, because again, like as we said, originally we were formed through just doing it, like going, we need this, we need, like James said, immaculate. We didn't have a set designer, we didn't have a, a lighting designer. We were just like, okay, light that bit up and light that, make that bit dark, and But that was our process. And I think one thing that we could do better in this country is support those types of people. We've got lots of young writer courses, we've got lots of young director courses, we've got lots of, but you don't have any support for companies or for practitioners or for people that just make stuff.
I agree.
You know, we're kind of, the way that we support and fund young talent is to separate it from the people that they work with a lot of the time. And actually what we need to do is, you know, you find young companies that are brilliant young companies that work together, we need to find a way of helping them to continue to work together and support them as a unit, as opposed to going, right, okay, well, let's take the writer out and put them on a course, and let's take the director out and give them a bursary.
And I think there are, you know, without getting onto a 7-hour discussion, which is what it would be, about the Arts Council, you know, don't get me started on the Arts Council, but you know, the Arts Council are, the positives of them is they are one of the people who are there that can help a company. And we've been funded by the Arts Council quite a lot.
Yeah, they've been fantastic.
They have been great. And so they are an organisation that can help, you know, like an organisation like we were at the beginning, but still, you know, that organisation, we didn't get Arts Council funding for the first time we ever applied.
No, of course.
Because we didn't know what we were doing.
No idea.
Well, actually, we teach it now. It's one of the very first.
Brilliant.
Because our third years have to form a company, and part of their training for that is we teach them how to get funds, raise funds, and how to make Arts Council applications, because our course is about contemporary performance. We only teach contemporary performance. So of course, a big part of that is they devise.
Yeah.
They're devising companies, which means, again, they don't want to go on writers' programs, they don't want to go on directors' programs, they want funding as a company, so we've started to teach them.
Well, it's a big thing that we're doing. Like, we've got the Les Enfants Award, which we award to kind of, and again, the whole process of that was thinking about when we started and tried to, I remember trying to apply for Arts Council funding, and I literally had no idea what I was doing, and it was going, what I could do is, if you go, right, here's what I want to do, here's why I want to do it, and let me show you. And so our process is built around that. You go, you send us in a 3-minute video, you tell us who you are, what you want to do, and why you want to do it, and then we have a showcase, and you do 10 minutes of the show, and then we pick a winner, and then we give that winner, we give them £1,000 of our own money. We get them a slot, the Pleasance in Edinburgh, and we get them up to Edinburgh and we mentor them.
Yes, I was reading about it on my
And it's basically going, well, what did I need when I started? I needed somewhere to do a show, I needed some money, and I needed some advice. And so that's what we try and offer. And actually what we're really excited about now is we're starting up a new award, which I'm allowed to talk about because it's only us and I can only get in trouble with that. But we're going to be launching a new award called the Stepladder Award, which is essentially the next step after that.
Okay.
And that is going to be to try and find young companies that are creating work, and the plan for that will be, the winner of that, we will help them book a tour, we will mentor them, we will get a London showcase for them. So it's this step up from once you've done, you know, because that was the next stage for us. We were doing Edinburgh, we were being very successful in Edinburgh, and then we were like, well, how do we make this a thing?
Yeah.
And you need to, you know, we need to tour, we need to do shows in London, we need to build our profile. So that's an award we're just trying to figure out and put together now, and, you know, again, to encourage young theatre companies and help them
definitely
get
telling
up.
students about that then. Okay, so thank you very much for talking to me. So my listeners and me need to keep our eye open for July for something potentially exciting, and our eye open in October as well for something else exciting.
Madame Tussauds July, The Vaults September, October.
And then, of course, Alice is coming back.
Alice is coming back, and that's going to be going on sale in about a month or so, I think.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty early.
Right,
maybe 6 weeks' time.
Yeah.
So that's all our immersive stuff, but of course our theatre stuff as well. Which is the
Vaudevillains.
Vaudevillains in Southwark.
Will be coming to Edinburgh, and Southwark Playhouse, which will be lots of fun.
Yes.
And the
Imaginary Menagerie
is still
continuing
going on.
Outdoor,
And then if you're going to any festivals this year, you might see us. If you see a giant horse box or a strange balloon-looking contraption,
that is you.
It's probably us.
Latitude, Glastonbury, those places.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about any of your Twitter or anything, or plug any of those things?
Yes, that's a good idea. We should do that, shouldn't we? We are. Our Twitter is at Les Enfants Terrible, TERR. We couldn't fit the bull.
No.
Obviously, Facebook is just Les Enfants Terrible, and then our website is www.lesenfantsterrible.co.uk, and you can find out most stuff on there. We announce you know, we announce all our kind of new projects, and we announce castings and everything.
As well, yeah.
So that's
where do you announce
things.
tickets first? Do you normally do them Facebook, Twitter, or on the website first?
Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
And, well, hopefully all at the same time.
Okay.
But
Or if you go onto our website and sign up to our mailing list, which you can go onto our website, click onto our mailing list, and then you will get everything first. And if you go onto our mailing list, you'll also get pre-sale.
Perfect.
So we try and, for every show that we do, we try and offer like a 24-hour pre-sale to our mailing subscribers
Fans.
before they go on general sales. So
Good.
particularly like with the new shows coming up, which have got small audiences, they're probably quite good things. If you want to get in, then they're probably a good place to do it.
Well, thank you so very much for talking to me. I know you're very, very busy, so I really appreciate it.
Not
And I'm
at
sure
all.
my
Thank
listeners
you.
do as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for listening to the first episode of Talking About It Immersive Theatre. I hope that was interesting and entertaining for you. There's a few things I need to alert you to. TAIT is going to be a monthly podcast and will be available from the first of every month from this point on. Now, you can find us through several different avenues. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube, so you can subscribe to those so that you don't miss out on anything. Also, I would love to hear what you think about the podcast, so please do share your comments and your thoughts with me on those services. You can also find more information, news and updates via Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @TAIT Podcast, which is TAIT and then, podcast. There's also even more information on my website, which is joannabucknell.co.uk. So next month, the 1st of June, I'm going to be releasing episode 2. In that, I'm going to be continuing my discussions with Les Enfants Terrible, but I'm going to be talking to 2 of the performers, Alice and James, and they were involved in Alice Underground. So I'm going to be talking to them about what it's like to be a performer in an immersive piece of theatre. So, until the 1st of June, goodbye.